Can you hear me, Todd? Is my audio working? Oh yeah, dude. Good to be a pro at this thing, Todd. What up, Platinum Respect? What up, Todd? I'm gonna be in and out a little bit. I've got a couple more things to wrap up, but I'll be in and out. Enjoy the Annie. What is good? Enjoy the fireplace. Get yourself a beverage going. Right now I'm on coffee, but this is a fun throwback one, man. This is I should talk about this when we go on. But this coffee mug is basically, what up, Jamie? This coffee mug is basically the reason that I got to go pro. All right. So I'll talk about this. I called it a coffee cup. I think it's supposed to be a beer mug, but I use it for a coffee cup. But I'll be back in. I got a little running around to do. I'm gonna grab some beer, make sure I'm all set with everything. So yeah. It reminds me when I was teaching, feel free to talk amongst yourselves. Find out, tell each other what you got in the fermenter if you have anything, huh? And just so you know, I don't have what don't I have? I like to print my things out. I'm adding to my list. HLT crazy story. Coffee mug industry. I can spell, I'm sure. Over 10 just canned imperial style. Love this. Keep it up. Nothing from it for me, but fast beer lager. Ooh, lager season, boy. All right, I'll be back. Wait, man. Look at you all talking to each other. Look at you guys talking beer. We got about 3 minutes before we're jumping here. Hey, Mongoose, that's interesting. I'm just going to read what you said here in the chat. I've got an experiment. I'm bottling Sunday split batch of any IPA, half fine with gelatin, half without. I'd be really interested to see how that turns out, man, because I do know people are doing that. I do know people are fining, even those hazy beers, those hazy beers. Scott Janish, Sapwood Cellars, they utilize biofine because they feel like it takes the edge off that hot burn a little bit. So yeah. I need to step up my beer glass clean glassware. It's a little embarrassing, I'm not gonna lie. So let's see what this light here. Where are we? What are we doing? Let's do a little bit of that, and then let me flip this one on. It is 8 o'clock. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Adam Makes Beer. My name is Adam, and welcome to the November live stream. I've got a little amber lager in the glass, so that's tasty. Often. I don't know why. There's other beers. Typically, I'm tasting the lighter beers that I have on. I'm kind of tracking those, so that would be nice. I think I'm gonna have 2 pints of this tonight, and sometimes you really do kind of need to. It can kind of sound like a joke, but sometimes you need to sit down with a couple of pints of something and kind of wrap your mind around it a little bit. And Platinum, no, man, I do not have a kegerator, keezer, whatever other words you want to put together for how they do that for like a keg fridge or something house. I don't have that. I do have some canned beer that I'll bring from work. Usually it's we have, so they're in these labels. These are the extras that I will can for competition. So if I need 6 beers for competition, we'll can 8 in case like we drop one and bust one or something like that while we're getting ready to ship. So typically for this, you'll see me pouring out of these, which means that these were beers that were canned for competition, and I just didn't. They're just the extras, the safety net, really. But so no, I don't have beer on tap at the house. I probably I don't drink enough beer at the house for that. And yeah, I'm at the age and number of kids that I have, the 6 kids I have, the age I'm at, man. If I have a beer or two at night when I get home, I'm just gonna fall asleep anyway, and I don't have time for that. So no, I don't do that. But a little airborne amber lager in the glass right now. Hey, man, I'm pleased with it. I don't know. That's fun. It's it's good to sit down and be with you with you all tonight. We've got some fun stuff coming up. We have some really great stuff going on the channel, and I really have to tell you, man, I appreciate it so much. The tuning into the live streams, the liking, the comments, sharing, all that stuff is such a huge benefit to me and to the channel. We really appreciate it. We are up to 1,700 subs, which is crazy to me. It's really been awesome. It's really been awesome. As a matter of fact, we're like 7 months into releasing content, and we just got monetized, which is it's wild to me. What I googled said that 0.25% of YouTube channels are monetized. That number might be higher, but I do know only about 8% of YouTube channels have 1,000 subs. So I just really appreciate all of your support and everything like that. I'm really excited about where the channel is at right now and where we're going to be going, because I think we're just going to be, I think it's just going to build on itself, man. And I think we're going to do a lot of fun stuff. You know, I want this thing to be about like not just me telling you, hey, this is exactly how you do this, but really much more of, hey, this is my journey, right? This is what I'm learning. This is where I'm at now. And this is how I'm trying to get better. And I think that's, you know, ideally what this whole beer making thing is about. So anyways, yeah, if your new wife is watching the live stream with you, that is love. That is a good woman. Hello, Mrs. Platinum Respect. Um, Good evening. Hopefully you're having a nice beverage, whether it be beer, wine, cocktail. And that's awesome for you sitting down with your man and engaging. That's awesome. I like it. Um, so running through things, man. Yeah, 1,700 subs. That's awesome. Keep sharing it. Make sure to get it out to people. The more we grow this thing, the more cool things I'm gonna be able to start doing. I wanna, I don't know, I wanna do more collabs. I wanna use this channel as a way to create opportunities for me to do new things, learn new things, so I can share them with all of you. There is that. We just released fully a series called Brew School, which I actually had a buddy of mine named Dustin, a good, dear friend of mine. He came in and recorded me for the entirety of a brew day, and it was a lot of fun. So what you don't know behind the scenes is some of the stuff that you're seeing. So like that brew school, uh, the brew school series that just wrapped, I recorded in February. Okay, and yeah, obviously there's a long layover for this channel. I started recording essentially first of the year, and we didn't release our first video until like May 18th. So we had several months of video. So some of that footage that you're seeing is old, and so I was having a hard time being natural on camera. And so my boy Dustin was like, "Well, let me come in and I'll record you, and then so you don't have to think about that, and you can just talk to me and explain to me, you know, like what the brew day is and how that goes." And it was really a game changer for me. I think I feel a lot more comfortable in that one, and it comes across some of the really early videos. I might seem a little stiff, you know, but that was one of the first times that I felt like, I don't know, it was really cool and conversational. And so when I was going back and looking at that footage, I was going to chop it up and try to make like a shorter, more compressed series. And then I was looking at it, I'm like, well, let me roll the dice and just see like what it's really like a long form approach to it, right? Where I want you to have that feeling of I'm talking to you, you're behind the camera, right? And you're just seeing everything that we're doing in process. The response to this series has been really, really great. I'm going to continue to mix things up because not all of my footage is like that with someone recording me. I think there's something a little bit intangible having somebody behind the camera rather than me, setting it up on a stand or holding it with my hand or something like that. But we're going to try a lot of different stuff, but really big picture, I'm going to keep bringing you content based on the brew days that we're doing, full recipes, and really trying to explain what we have going on with all of that stuff. I had a story. Where'd it go? Hold on a second. I'm coming right back. I was drinking. Oh. I was drinking coffee just before this because I get up early, and so sometimes you have to try to ramp back up. And I realized this mug it's supposed to be like a beer mug, but I drink coffee in it. This coffee mug for me is basically one of the main reasons I ended up getting into the industry. So this was actually awarded for a gold medal in the Brews Cruise competition. This was probably back in, oh golly, I don't know, 2007, 8 maybe 9, in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And so if you got gold, boom, you got one of these mugs. And it just so happened I won a good number of these mugs. And I'd never done anything with them. And so for the longest time now, I just like them. I don't know, they're cool. They're cool coffee cups. I like drinking out of them. But because I had the success in this Brews Cruise competition, they wrote an article about me in our local small town paper. And it kind of put me on the radar of the first brewery that I work for. So just, you see me sipping out of this. This was part of the stepping stone upward and onward for me. A little bit of coffee, a little bit of beer. Before I forget, also today, boom, we are going to be doing a giveaway, giving away 3 of these. When I say we, what I really mean is my man Food Science Podcast. Let me look that up real quick. Let me check him out. I apologize for not remembering it clean off the top. Let me check my post. Hey, check out Flora Brewing if you haven't. Check out Flora Brewing if you haven't, because she has cool stuff on there. The Food Engineer Podcast, a Spanish language podcast, but I'm sure the super majority of my viewership is smart enough that they just knock those things out. They've got multiple languages, so but check it out. These things are awesome. They're very, very detailed, basically brew journal. Very cool calculations in the front. Fantastic brew logs in here. He has these things, the Food Engineer Podcast. He has these things available on Amazon. You can get them hardcover, softcover. We're going to be giving out 3 of them today. And yeah, it's going to be a good time. We'll see if we can dig up that. We'll see if we can dig up that link for the Discord. If I can't, maybe actually that might screw me up. I will figure out a way to throw it in there. Dave P, if you can do it, that's awesome. Otherwise, we'll get it figured out, and then we'll post it in YouTube, like as a YouTube posting, right? So for some of my YouTube people, will see that. Yeah. Platinum respect, Adam. I love your content. So many brew tubers, no names, do 20 to 30-minute videos that are just so filled with unneeded info. Love your approach and teaching style. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So what else do we have going on? I had a this is probably one of the crazier things that's happened to me in the brewery in a while, and it just happened this past week, and I just realized that it happened today. So I have an over under hot liquor tank and then mash tun on top of it. Okay, so they're right on top of each other. There's a separation between the two of them, and inside my hot liquor tank, how it's all plumbed up is when I need to top that off, like if I've been using hot water out of the hot liquor tank all day, I have to fill that back up at toward the end of the day. So I have a full tank of hot water the next day, right? So I fill that back up, and then typically what happens is there's a standpipe inside of it. So it's an 1.5-inch pipe that goes up, and then when the water level hits that point, it just pours down onto the floor. I see the water hit the floor. I turn the water off. Easy peasy, right? So, I mean, we've been doing that for 2 years. Typically, what I do is we kind of have a quarterly acid cleaning that we run on our hot liquor tank because our water throws a ton of scale. And it's like we are pulling eggshells out of there. Okay. That's how scaly my water is here. And but we just turned acid on it like a couple weeks ago. And anyway, so the tank's in great shape, and I know it. And so the other day we were filling up the HLT, and Josh was in the cooler and I was in the kitchen, and we both heard a big bang. And it was almost like somebody just really slammed the lid to the kettle or the mash tun closed. We both ran in, and then we heard another big slam, and we're like, all right. And then we looked, and water was coming out of the bottom of the HLT. So we turned the water off, and we're like, well, that was really strange. We couldn't figure out why it did that, right? We were thinking maybe it was something on the steam side, throwing cold water onto the hot walls of the steam jacketed hot liquor tank. Dude, what ended up really happening is that standpipe almost completely filled with scale. So it's an 1.5-inch pipe. You could, see through it, put your hand into it partially, right? I could barely get the tip of my pinky in the top because it was so clogged up with hard water. Because when I run CIP on that, I don't get acid down the standpipe, and it never really dawned on me, right? So I'm like, oh man, what are we gonna have to do? And I was worried. Like, my first panic thing is, I'm like, dude, am I gonna have this thing, cut out and then re-welded back in, blah blah blah? Because I didn't think there would be a connection on the bottom of the tank. I was worried there wouldn't be a connection on the bottom of the tank for me to push acid up into it with a pump, right? Because we'll run an acid product to help descale that. Because I couldn't get acid down it flowing. I knew I'd have to get it pumping up through. So I crawled back there, got underneath, and there is a ferrule. The ferrule is just a little connection that allows us to start putting clamps and elbows and stuff on. That's the connection point for all of our brewery Legos, right? Is a ferrule. And so it did have a ferrule. So we're able to rig it up and pump it to where we can get that done. But I think we probably have the majority of that scale out of there. I'm going to wait on Monday to take a look at it once it's dry and everything, and make sure that it's shiny in there. I want to see shiny stainless. I don't want to see anything dull in there. I don't have to worry about this again for a while. But what it did was, I actually built pressure in that hot liquor tank because my capacity to evacuate water out of that standpipe was less than what I was pushing into it. and I actually put water all the way to the top, and it actually buckled the difference between the mash tun up top and the top of the hot liquor tank. It didn't create a ton of damage in my mash tun, but there's some braces that run alongside. So like if you're looking at this is the doorway to the mash tun right now. There's braces that run into the mash tun that hold up the false bottom. Two of those braces got cracked off of the outside shell. I don't have any other broken welds or anything like that. So yeah, it was really crazy. So just really a note out there for anybody on the pro side. If you have a combination of these things, if you have a standpipe inside your hot liquor tank to drop excess water, and you build scale in particular, really keep an eye on it, man. But I'm not gonna lie, I really think we got fortunate. I mean, from a safety standpoint, yes. I'm not super concerned about that, but definitely from a cost standpoint, we could have had some real damage with those tanks. We do have some. Looks like it'll be a relatively easy fix. Still, you never want to spend money when you don't have to. But that was my wild thing this week, was that craziness with the hot liquor tank. Okay, coffee's gone. On to beer. That's my intro stuff. We're gonna have some more cool stuff coming up this month, you guys. I'm still kind of deciding. I obviously did the pro series, that brew school one. I'm going to start coming back through some of the footage I have, and figuring out what I'm going to start popping out next. Again, some of them will be different styles, maybe not as in depth as the last one, but we'll see how it goes. And what else? Yeah, dude, I think that's it. I do want to not give away, but I do want to tell you my favorite. This is my favorite comment of the month. I'm going to keep an eye out for the best comment that I get every month. And Bannon TV on YouTube is in no danger of finding out that I'm about to talk about him, because I don't think he will watch any more of my content after sending me this message. This is attached to the brew school one. I'm an apprentice in a German brewery. The atmosphere in your brew house is very chill. ... Too chill for my taste. We multitask a lot. Filming video would not be possible. Well, Bannon TV. First of all, it sounds like a hoot where you guys work. It sounds like you're having a great time. And hey, good for you. Now, I would like to clarify some things. I mentioned earlier that we recorded this in February. January and February are the two slowest months probably in our industry. Also, I had two people that were working with me, Josh and Maggie, who I was just training up, and they were really getting to the point to where I was nudging them out of the nest on doing more and more things like independently. So I was in a situation where like I had literally nothing to do other than turn work that day. So I could turn work, talk about it. Dustin was there. We could interact. But yeah, man, my boss isn't worried about it. But I'm glad you are. Enjoy your less chill work environment, and I'll enjoy my chill work environment. He's not getting, listen, Bannon, you're not getting this. Okay. It's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Besides, I don't know if there's measurements in there for metric or not. There probably is, because it's thorough and actually a very cool thing. But yeah, so that's my guy. Okay, who else? So platinum respect. By the way, I think I just said platinum respect, like with a K on the end of it. Platinum respect. Uh, it would be September and June that wants to know where I put that pinky. Uh, Hopefully you were listening, September, and you don't have a standpipe, a scaly standpipe in your hot liquor tank. My goodness, it was insane. Love you too, man. Um, but uh, but yeah, so platinum respect. So when I'm turning any tank, whether it was the hot liquor tank today or the a fermenter, whatever, what we're doing is the vessel itself counts is the receptacle for the cleaning chemical. Okay, so it's holding the cleaning chemical, caustic, acid, sanitizer, what have you. So I'm pumping off the bottom of that tank into the pump. I'm drawing off the bottom of the tank into the pump and then returning it up and out, up through usually the CIP arm. That goes to a spray ball in the top of the tank. It goes through the spray ball, hits the sides of the tank, and then collects at the bottom where it's circulated, right? I would recommend go ahead and dig into, I believe it's my tutorial playlist, and you can get a really good look at, and that's probably when I'm a little bit more serious at them, but it's a really thorough step-by-step of what that whole CIP process looks like. So jump back into some of those playlists and see. I think it'll give you a good visual of what's going on with that process. So yeah, Bannon had me laughing with that. I needed to yeah. It is what it is. I have to say though, I have not had people saying mean things to me, which is cool. So anyways, let's start digging in here a little bit. Ooh, all right. I'm gonna take one out of the chat right off the top. September and June thoughts on lab pitches for high gravity beers, 18 Plato plus when not propping. So yeah, man. You know what I would do, Rock, is I would get that. If you don't have the opportunity to repitch, prop, or whatever, I would just jack up. I would just really jack up that original volume. Now I will say this: one of the really interesting things that I saw recently, I think I just saw that White Labs is like making a big jump in the amount of cells that they're starting to ship out for people, their baseline cell numbers. They did it because other people are sending out a hell of a lot more cells, man. Imperial and I hate to and I hate to sound like that, but dude, Imperial. I was talking to my other one of my pro buddies, Andy. They just switched over to their yeast, and he was like, "Dude, they send so much yeast," and I'm like, "Yeah, man." Like the lag time, it's not like with other things. I believe at one point, I think they're borderline sending almost double what White Labs was sending at one time. I don't think I have to ever worry about getting a White Labs, uh, sponsorship deal with what I'm saying right now. But they just up their game, right? Which they probably should, because there's other people out there slinging more cells per mil. So what I would do with that is, if typically what you would like to do is you would like to get that pitch in whatever, if you're going to do a high gravity beer or something like that, give it a nice easy beer. Ferment a batch of your blonde ale with it first, right? A low gravity, low IBU beer, maybe even low color. That's probably not as important. But then you can harvest this big happy yeast cake off of it that's ready to roll, right? If you're going straight out of the gate with it, you can talk to your yeast rep. You can look at a calculator. Me personally, if I was going to be pitching big on something, I would have no problem legitimately just talking to, like, for me, the folks at Imperial. they've never pointed me wrong. I've spent a lot of time both on the phone with salespeople and with people in the lab, and they've just been really, really great. Again, it is something you can punch into a yeast calculator, but also really what you're looking at doing is you're just looking at buying a larger pitch. I mean, if you're talking about doing 15 barrels of that, and rather than thinking of it as the standard pitch rate that you normally would, you're probably best looking at, probably, to feel safe, just off the top of my head, I'd say, 1.75 to even 2 times. But I'm a little bit of a fraidy cat when it comes to that. And I like to throw yeast around, man. I like to have a lot of active yeast doing their thing, happy and healthy. But that's kind of my take on it. Because really what you don't want to have, and I think we've had it all happen September and June, is you're trying to ferment something out and it doesn't have the stones to get it done, right? You're not, it doesn't have the oomph to really get through the work. So yeah, that's what I would say as far as that goes. And we're going to be talking a little bit more yeast health questions as we go tonight. But I'm going to jump to my man, Backyard Brews and Barbecues. So I had an issue in my last brew where the pump to my chiller failed. I found my other pump to place the wort into my fermentation vessel for a no-chill option. The no-chill option, I believe, is the preferred option of Bannon TV. Zing. After a couple days, the wort finally fell in enough temperature to pitch. I'm on day 3 of seeing no activity in the airlock. I did peek inside to see the krausen. I checked all areas for air leaks and found none. I haven't taken a reading yet. Should I pitch a new package of yeast after the krausen drop? I guess it would depend on what my reading is at the end of the week. So, situation like this, you have a brew day go sideways, and you decided to go no chill. Now, and I'm going to say this, and I'm not sure exactly if this is what this is, but I think this is the range. No chill is a technique some people are using, and I think I originally heard about it. Folks, our Aussie friends down there using that technique. You put it into some sort of fermentation vessel that can take the heat, and you just wait for it to cool down. You use the heat of the wort to sanitize the container. The container is potentially plastic, so it can draw in a little bit without breaking, things like that. And then you pitch the yeast later. My thought is that that's something I have not done, and I'm sure you can do your thing with it. There's some things that I have concern about with that. That are just innate to my personality. I want that wort as cold as possible, and I want yeast in it as soon as possible. That's just where I feel comfortable, and everything like that. I'm sure you can make some tasty beer with that method, but I'm not super familiar with it. What I would do is I'm going to look at this question as a way of saying I had something not go to plan in the brew day. I had some fermentation stuff not go exactly to plan. If you saw krausen, man, that thing is fermenting, okay? You're going to want to wait till the krausen drops, cool the beer down, get it packaged. You can taste it. You can taste it before you package it to decide if you want to. But if you see that krausen there, something happened, right? So something was eating sugar, okay? So this might not be the most helpful, but it is. I would just let it finish out, taste, and see if it's worth going into package. And then I'm glad that you had the redundancy of the backup pump and different things like that. Once you get the beer out of that fermenter and you weren't clear on what kind of fermenter it is, give it a good look over. And if you can't see any visible reasons why it was failing you as far as the seal goes, it might be time to rotate that thing out and stuff like that. So anyhow. All right, man. Thanks for the question. Next, I am going to jump to Razor 97. I just noticed that you always wear safety glasses in the brew house. Is there any PPE requirements by law or just house rules? Also, how do you handle and okay. Yeah, PPE is, I mean, it's an important thing, personal protective equipment. Dude, I'm not gonna lie, man. It was this channel recording yourself makes you be more diligent. And I hate to say that, but it's made me be more it's made me be more diligent personally and also as a manager, as a leader in the brew house. It's stuff we need to do, right? I have my Dahmer-esque wireframe like Dwight Schrute glasses that you see sometimes in the videos with the little wings on the side. I have those. I order them from Zenny Optical. What you might not know is they have bifocals because I'm aging. So yeah, that's really what I need, and so that's what I'm wearing. And it really is just doing the channel that's made me try to step up my game, right? Um, and really, especially for the other folks that I have brewing in there too, I have to lead by example, everything like that. So, I mean, our primary stuff is, and you can always go further on things, right? Um, we don't have a face shield for when we're handling chemical. It'd be a good idea. I think as a staff, we do a pretty good job. We're good with gloves. We do a pretty good job with glasses. Um, as far as OSHA goes and everything like that, there's always requirements and things like that. And you want to stay ahead on stuff like that. We are not as much under the microscope of OSHA right now, but it's gonna come, right? We're making food. We're making a food product, so it's just better for us to be on our game because it's what we should be doing from a safety standpoint and everything like that. So that's kind of our approach to it, and it's tough, man, because it gets steamy. Your glasses get steamed up. You have to take them off to look into the kettle or the mash tun or whatever. But it is something you just gotta grind through and try to do what's best for yourself long term. If you want to be doing this for 20, 30 years, you're probably better off doing the things you're supposed to be doing when it comes to all that. So thanks for the question, man. Let me jump back over to chat real quick. Jamie, your hopback question is in the queue. I'm gonna get to that a little bit later. Yeah, fun thing. Platinum Respect, Whirlflock, dude, bro, it's the same thing. I just use more of them. It's the same thing. I just use more. It's just that I still use Whirlflock tea. That's it. It's just those tabs. I just use more of them than you. I think they have like this Big Daddy tab now. Like just this big one. It's like a hockey puck or something. You can do that. I want one of those just to sling around, anyways. But yeah, that's what I use. That's what I use. All right. Biker Metalhead, what should you when? I'm sorry. I'm just going to start over. Biker Metalhead, when should you measure the pH of the wort if you want to lower it prior to going into the fermenter? For example, I want to lower the pH to around 4.6 using food grade phosphoric acid. Should I measure the pH at 30 minutes left in the boil? Is there any rule of thumb as to how much phosphoric acid to use? Here's the tricky thing with this. It's a great question. Here's the tricky thing with that. It's going to be different for everybody with your different waters. Okay. Like my water right now, the makeup of my water is such that I have to use a lot of acid to move the dial, when it comes to dropping pH. It's because, and I might be butchering this, and a legit science person is probably there, rubbing their chin and looking angrily at me. But I believe it's the high alkalinity in my water that it makes it very difficult to pull down that pH with acid. So I have a buddy that can adjust his entire HLT with like 60 mils of acid. Dude, I need a half liter of acid to adjust my strike for brewing IPA. All right. So it's just crazy. You know what I mean? So that end of it, it's going to be different for everybody. There's different ways to go about it. Biker Metalhead, I would suggest that you download and dive into the Brew and Water spreadsheet. It's super good. It'll kind of walk you through how to do things. It might be a little bit daunting to set up. It's daunting for me. I had a friend set it up for me. It's daunting for me, but grind through it or have a smart friend and then learn how to use it, because that will help guide you a little bit. For me also, I've done just a little bit of trial and error. Throwing a little bit, because I know I have to use so much acid. Throwing a little something. You could also pull a measured volume and then dose that, right? And then you can scale that up based on your volume. Okay. So that's really my recommendation for all of that. Again, I know we've talked about it a little bit. It's my hunch that if you have to use a lot of acid to adjust, potentially phosphoric, maybe more flavor neutral. But again, I know a lot of dudes that are making killer beers with all lactic acid adjustments. So, do you, Biker Metalhead? Jamie Tripp, I got your question right here. It was coming right up. What are your thoughts on using a hopback to limit vegetal material from entering or on late or dry hop additions? I think this is a really, I like this. I like this. So, hopback, whether it's on the homebrew side or the pro side, what we're talking about is we are talking about a vessel that will be between the kettle. Oh, I'll move this hand over. Between the kettle and the heat exchanger. Okay, so your wort is still hot. Wort is coming out of the kettle, going into the hot back, and the hot back will oftentimes have some sort of filter or screen or some sort of like screen container that you can fill with like whole hops. And then it goes from there to the heat exchanger, and then gets cooled down. And there's multiple things that can do. Obviously, it'll give you some hop compounds into your wort. But that vegetal matter will actually help to serve somewhat as a filter too, for getting out some trub, some particulate from going into your heat exchanger and on into your fermenter. I will say this. I've only done a little bit of work with one. I think that if you're looking to get dry hop character out of a hop back, I don't think that's what you're going to get out of a hop back. I don't think that's what you're going to get out of a hop back. I think you're going to get a late kettle flavor out of it. I think you're going to see a boost in aromatics, right? How intense that is compared to Whirlpool hops, though, it might be debatable, because listen, I'm open for discussion on this, because like I said, I don't have a ton of experience, but I do know that it's often not like the most expressive hops that people are putting in there. Maybe you're putting some awesome whole hops in there, like the cool guy hops and stuff that people are using for IPA right now. But I know people are using noble hops in there. They're using Cascade, some different things like that. But I don't know. There's not a massive amount of contact time. And it's actually not a massive amount of volume because when I'm whirlpool hopping my IPA, I think my IPA right now has, like 33 pounds in the whirlpool, and 16. So it's about 2 pounds per barrel in the whirlpool. If you put another if you can give it 8, 10 pounds of whole hops, because whole hops take up a lot of space, man. So, it's not like you're getting a huge volume in, number one, comparatively to what you can do in the whirlpool potentially. So, yeah, I think you can get some character out of it. I don't think it would come across like dry hop though, because it's going to see the full fermentation, potentially interact with the yeast depending on what yeast you're using, and changing compounds from biotransformation. But yeah, man. I still see it as something in your tool belt. It's definitely something that can help you get clearer work to your fermenter, which I think there's utility to. And it might be able to help you pull some nuance, and do your thing with it, rip with it, and have some fun with it. As always, even if it's not the most dynamic tool, it can be a tool in your tool belt. Use it, experiment with it, and see what it does for you. See what it, because you never know when it's going to be the right trick to implement with a new beer that you're working on. So yeah, that's my take on that, my man. Um, Platinum Resac PSA, Christmas is coming up. Everyone put the Anton Par Easy Dens on your Christmases. Absolute game changer, to get your gravity readings, especially if you are brewing at home. It's nice because it needs so little. It doesn't need much volume at all. And always at home, there's that pressure. You want your 5 gallons, you want your 10 gallons, stuff like that, right? I tell you what, if anybody has anything on their Christmas list, for me, I mean, just like whether it be a C box, different things like that you can. I'm going to edit that out, but I think that sounds inappropriate. But a C box. I'll say it again. But yeah, I so badly want to be able to measure DO, like when I'm purging tanks, stuff like that. I was just talking to another brewer recently, and I told him about the methodology that we use that I got from Master Brewers about 5 psi coming through the CO2 flow, and through the bottom of the tank, a half hour every 5 barrels, basically, whatever. So anyhow, but yeah, I would love that. But yeah, I don't think anybody's going to be dropping that amount of cash on me. Yeah. All right. Let's jump into another one. How do and I messed up on this one. I have some questions without names, but you know who you are. How do I make my beer more stable in my kegs? Every week or so, I notice the flavor profile changes, some for the good, some not so good. All right, so this is a big it depends answer, right? First, let's go with the assumption that all your processes are right. Quality control is tight and everything's good, right? You're clean, you're sanitary, you're well purged, oxygen's not an issue, right? If all of those things are happening and you're seeing that your beer is changing, sometimes good, sometimes not good. If it's changing for the good, it can be something like a heavily dry hopped IPA that can potentially be dropping some of its hop burn, right? It can be mellowing a little bit. It can also be a thing where certain beers, and in my experience at home, I was making, and this was all Jamil Zainasheff stuff. I was making, like the Scottish shilling beers, and dude, I was laying them down. I was making these 3-4% beers and laying them down in the cellar for a long time because I was stacking up entries for competition. When I was entering competition, I was entering like 25 to 38 beers in a competition. So yeah, I just brew a batch, put it in the bottles, put it in the basement, and then take those things out when it's competition time, and try to blow it up, right? But Man, even those small beers, because common knowledge would, yeah, if it's common knowledge, but common sentiment on it would be is those beers won't age out well. Well, it had some roast malt in it. It was a darker beer, dude, and those beers killed. The longer I had them in bottle, the better they were. Sometimes there's just something to like this smoothness, just the ability for the beer to come together, get smoother, more round, stuff like that. And that can all work really well, right? That's the good side of having a beer change. Sometimes the not so good, it's typically one of two things, right? It's going to be a process error. One, it's going to be sanitation, cleaning, sanitation, or it's going to be oxygen, or it's those things earlier in the process, right? That stuff can go wrong in the fermenter, things can go wrong during transfer, and things can go wrong in the finished vessel, whatever that is. If you're using a bottling bucket, that would be the bottle. You're going into keg, it can be the keg, stuff like that. So what I would look at, what I would look into is maybe reevaluating those cleaning and sanitizing processes. Just real quick cliff notes: you're not going to sanitize something that's not clean, because you're not going to sanitize soil, right? I was a big fan of using PBW when I was brewing at home. PBW, Star San, use the appropriate concentrations at the appropriate temperature for the appropriate amount of time. Rinse well, stuff like that. I actually listened to a great podcast years ago on the Brewing Network, and maybe it was a Brew Strong episode where they had the owner of Five Star on, the chemical people. Killer thing. So Google search that up, and that's probably what you're going to want to be what you're going to want to be digging into on that side. Sometimes it's just a beer rounding out, right? And finding its spot. You're having small particulate fall out. You're having the beer develop, mature. And when it goes sideways, it's usually going to be chalked up to one of those other reasons. So redouble efforts on that, and keep thumping, man, because you'll get better with it. You'll get better with it. It's just about diligence and practice. Let me peek back over here to the chat a wee bit. Okay. So, how do I? Hey, yeah. So this is something that I've been wanting to talk about. Really, just a generalized question about making a yeast starter, and I'll talk about quickly what I did when I was making yeast starters at home, and then I'm going to talk about some of the big picture ideas behind it. Okay. So, making a yeast starter is when you are buying a vial of yeast. Typically, you're buying a vial or a pack of yeast, and you are giving it a chance to ferment or to work on a low gravity starter wort that typically has a little bit of nutrient in it. And the idea is you want to grow it up, increase the number of cells, get them viable, active, ready to do their thing, right? Oftentimes, when you are buying packets, vials, whatever, well, they don't. Vials is dating me. Vials was White Labs, man, and I think they have the little tear pack now thing. So yeah, I'm showing those gray hairs in my chin right now, but yeah, a lot of times, I mean, if you got Yeast Calculator, I think they give you a 4-month window on freshness for it. If you're halfway through that, you're losing cells, man. And as much as it'll say it will make a beer, but it's not the appropriate pitch rate. And I would really make an argument. I think one of the things that set me apart from guys when I first started getting on the scene and on the homebrew side was I was meticulous about yeast starters, getting my yeast happy and getting them ready to roll. Okay. It's a really, really big deal. It's a really, really big deal. So, and again, we're talking about liquid yeast right now. So what I did was I had a 2-liter Erlenmeyer flask. If they're like the rectangle ones with the straight top, it'll make you feel like a scientist. It'll make you feel like a baller. Get one. And then I had like this one that was like a 3 or 5 liter or something. Dude, it was amazing. I loved it. Now, what's great about this is you can mix that starter. So what I would do is I would take that flask. The nice thing about using this method is you can pair that flask up with a stir plate, right? And so a stir plate was, I think I actually won it. It was just I don't know, it's just a little fan with a magnet attached to it, and you plug it in, and it has it's encased in a box. You plug it in, turn it on, and it starts spinning. You put one of the little stir bars, slide that into the Erlenmeyer, and then get it on there, and it'll spin that little bar, and it'll make the liquids, the starter wort spin, and it keeps the yeast up active. It helps keep the process moving, helps speed up the process. So what I would do is I would get my big Erlenmeyer, I'd put my stir bar in, I would put my filtered water in, I would put enough dry malt extract, not sugar. You don't want to be propagating yeast on super simple sugar like that. You want to be mimicking the sugars that they're going to be fermenting. So get yourself some DME, some nice fresh DME. You don't want something that's been sitting around forever. Be careful, get that DME down into the liquid, get it going. You want a nice low gravity on that. You want something below 1040, something like 1032, something like that. Get it dissolved, a pinch of yeast nutrient in there, bring it up to a boil, okay, because you want it to be sanitary. The cool thing about using the Erlenmeyer is you boil in that, so the whole thing's sanitized, right? It's cool. It's heat sanitized. It's a great sterile way to do it. And then what I would do is I would then take that out and cool it. I would put a sanitized piece of tin foil over the top, and then I would get a cooling bath for it, but I wouldn't have that cooling water go beyond the liquid level of the flask, just because I wanted to prevent myself from breaking the flask by putting like a bunch of cold water above the liquid line and maybe getting too much of a shift in temperature for that glass. I know it's not glass. I think it's probably Pyrex, which should be able to handle it, the temperature differential, but you don't want to test it too hard. So you get that cooled down. You can get one of those little, laser thermometers to let you know when you're in range. Get it into the low 70s, high 60s. And then what I did was I had a gas stove. And this is like a little trick that you can do because anytime you take that covering off the top of the flask, you're worried about dust carrying microorganisms dropping into your flask, right? Or at least I am, because I'm crazy. So what I would do is I would put the flask in between 2 burners on my stove, and then I would turn the burners on. And so you would get a draft of heat going up, and it actually, and you can feel that, right? I mean, you know what that's like with that hot air rising. So you can actually create like a situation where nothing's dropping in to the flask, because you're basically built this air curtain above you with heat, right? And so that's when I would then pour the yeast in. I would put my sanitized aluminum foil back over top. I'd stir plate it up. I would give it 24 hours typically. If it was a smaller starter, I wouldn't decant, and I would just add the whole thing, rouse it up, add it in. But you're doing a few different things. You're getting more yeast cells. You're getting them up and active and ready to work, and it's bumping up your viability, your health, and your yeast health and everything like that. So remember, they're the ones that are doing the work. You're just some dude in a work shirt that probably smells bad and is wearing flip-flops when they shouldn't be in the brewery. Okay, that's you. Okay, it's the yeast that are doing the work. So keep them happy. Keep them happy. You're just trying to create an advantageous environment for the yeast. That's really what our job is. So that means it has to be sanitary. They have to be fat, happy, healthy, ready to do their thing. There has to be enough of them, stuff like that. So That's the big benefit of doing a starter. If you are using liquid yeast at home and you haven't played with starters, hit it up. Brewers Association has a book called Yeast. Do it. Get this. Again, Chris White, Jamil Zainasheff. Love Jamil Zainasheff. All his content is great. But dig in there. There are tons of great stuff. If it's not on your shelf, it should be. If you have a homebrew club and you have like a budget for education, like a general library, get this in there. Really, really good, really, really useful. The tips I talked about for doing the starter, all that stuff is all built off of this stuff. So do yourself a favor. Super killer book. And I think beyond fermentation, temperature control, that's on the home level, that's what's going to be these are the things that are going to take your beer to the next level. So yeah. Platinum Respect. I did use OxyClean free when I was at home, as opposed to PBW most of the time. The current manufacturer that I use, chemical manufacturer I use, calls it PBC. So yeah. Anyways, it's the same. It's this, yeah, but OxyClean free, so no perfume in that one. I use that a ton at home. I use that a ton when I was brewing at home. All right, let's see here. Yeah, defoamer is where it's at, man. You do not want that stuff on your skin. Yeah. All right, guys, let's get back over to it. Pivotal Goose on Reddit. Looking for a good chocolate porter recipe. How do I use chocolate in a porter? Yeah, man. It's a great question. First of all, listen, September and June, you can slight Jamil all you want, but he will always have my love. He will always have my love. But no, I would, and actually what I would say is it's probably right over here. I'll grab a book again. Again, I've got a hunch that tons of people that are making robust porter in this country are just making the robust porter recipe out of this book because it is baller. So have your base recipe, whatever you like. If you have your own, if you have your own recipe that you like, great, run with it. If you don't have one, use Jamil's, whatever. But what I would say is, if you're taking a porter recipe that you like, that's balanced just right for you, hey, Stephen, if you're taking a recipe that's just right for you, just the right bitterness, and I think that robust porter, if you're going really to style, potentially has a little bit more bitterness than you will want for it to be an adjunct beer. Okay, I think when I make, if I'm going to make an adjunct, so atypical ingredient, chocolate, coconut, whatever, I want those beers to be a little sweeter because typically we're including dessert type flavors. So what I would do is, if I'm going to be making a chocolate porter and I have like a really classic version of the style, I would consider backing down the IBU about 5 IBU. That's just me. I think that additional sweetness may help to push that adjunct character a little bit more. I think the last thing you want to do is, when you have something desserty, is to be thumping it over the head with a two-style level of bitterness, right? So consider that, think on it, do your own thing, but consider that when you're going to be adjuncting, especially with a dessert type adjunct like chocolate. Now let's jump into some options with that. I think that I like to look at how many ways can I get chocolate flavor into something. Okay, if because we're talking about chocolate in this instance. Um, Obviously, you can do that with malt. You can do that with chocolate products. You can do that with extract. Okay. I would like to try to create a range of those things. So, your options for chocolate, I would like to remove as much fat from the equation when it comes to chocolate. So, I would be looking for the lowest fat content products you can use. Okay. So, first option is chocolate powder, baking, cocoa powder, right? Low fat as you can go. That's one option. Another one is cocoa nibs, another option. Um, and what else? And then also something like an extract, right? I think that playing with those and maybe layering those up could be fun. All right. And let me throw some suggestions at you. If you want to, if you're going to use cocoa powder, I'm going to say that maybe you can think that you might pull not like an IBU bitterness out of that, but eat that stuff, man, and it's bitter stuff. Okay, that stuff's not going to make your beer sweeter. So build that into your mind. Um, Consider adding the powder on the hot side. Okay, we can get some good. You can get some good incorporation. I've always considered a scenario where if I was going to do something with chocolate, maybe pulling off a volume of wort out of the large kettle into a smaller kettle, putting a pretty large amount of cocoa powder into that, and then essentially pasteurizing that, temperature pasteurizing that, and getting it well incorporated, and then pushing it into the fermenter, and then running cold wort on top of it. So that way you get a chance to have a longer contact time with this wort hydrated cocoa powder. That's also kind of been heat pasteurized, but then you get that long contact time in the fermenter, right? So you get your contact time as well as maybe some work on the pasteurization side. When thinking about cocoa nibs, I really like cocoa nibs. Um, I would suggest maybe consider using cocoa nibs a little bit later in fermentation. Okay, so after alcohol is formed, after the pH drops, your beer is already a little bit more resilient as far as against microbiological stuff, things like that. The last time I worked with nibs, though, I roasted them to kind of open up the flavor and aromatics of them a little bit. People do that, chefs do that with different whole spices and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, dude, let me give this a shot. So I did that. Smells great. Um, it's a unique character and it's different than cocoa powder. So maybe you can roast up some nibs and get them into your fermenter either late in fermentation or post fermentation after the beer is cold, something like that, and taste your way through it. Maybe um, typically I do coffee for 4 days, so maybe start tasting after 2, 3, 4 days and seeing where that beer is with the nibs before you take that off. And then if you're thinking, okay, I have the chocolate flavor where I want it, I have some nice depth there between the malt, the nibs, the cocoa powder, and you feel as if maybe the nose is a little bit down, look for some nice chocolate extracts. And I would look up something like Apex Flavors. You can order directly from them. You can get a 2-ounce bottle that lasts you for a very long time. But you can. I've had some really nice extracts that I've worked with from them. So consider getting touching it up. Go with a light hand late. That would be on the packaging side, either in bottling bucket, in the keg. Go light with that because you just want that to be a slight enhancement aromatically, right? and then maybe incorporating some of those techniques, you can kind of put together that chocolate beer that just really pops, right? So let me know how that comes out. Chocolate beers are fun, and we're probably getting into the time of year when we need that chocolate beer. I just completely got distracted by the chat because I am getting comments that are being held for review. You guys are funny. Hey, welcome. And I believe it's Chuckim, as in Chuck and Kim Brewing. Welcome, Jason Jones. Nice Tennessee Volunteer shirt. I will say this, Jason. This is actually a Yeasty Boys shirt. This was my gift from Maggie before she took off to Urban Artifacts. So I didn't tell her that I'm wearing this. Dr. Lude's in the house. What's up, man? She gave me this shirt as a gift. So this is a little Easter egg for Maggie when she does end up seeing this. But yeah. Chuck and Brewing with the question, do you use extract in your peanut butter stout? We will be. And thank you for the congratulations on 2 years at Cartridge. It's been and it's just always such a great. I think sometimes with our career, we think, listen, things need to go this way, they need to go that way. And the older I get, the more I realize that everything's just opportunities to grow and enjoy what you got when you got it. And I don't know, it's the best way for me to take it. But yeah, man, thanks. I'm proud of what we've been doing and what we will be doing at Cartridge, and we've got a lot of good folks over there. So yeah, but to Chuck M Brewing, and I think I'm pronouncing it better now. I'm doing my best from what I can remember. Do you use extract in your peanut butter stout? I am going to be making a peanut butter cup stout coming up as soon as I get that mash tun issue worked out. We're going to be brewing that. And what my goal with this is and maybe keep me in your prayers, because I am going to try to drop a fair amount of PB2 powder into the whirlpool. So post boil, I'm going to be hitting up the whirlpool with probably 1.5 to 2 pounds per barrel of PB2 powder, which is, if you're not familiar, it's like kind of like a defatted. You can reconstitute it with water, like hikers will use it. It actually tastes quite good. I like it quite a bit. So I want to get that hot contact time in the whirlpool, and then, because I do not want to be sending peanut butter through to my heat exchanger, I am going to extend my whirlpool in hopes that I can get that stuff to cling down a little bit tighter to the bottom of the kettle before I start drawing off. So we'll see. We'll see how that works. And yes, I will be touching that up on the backside. So I'm going to be driving chocolate flavors with malt. I'm going to be driving peanut butter flavors with the real peanut butter. And then I'm going to come over the top of that with a little bit of TTB approved natural extract from our boys at, I think, Chris Paisano, man, actually his name, over at Apex Flavors. So look them up, man. They've got more flavors than you can imagine, and I've yet to be disappointed by the stuff that they do. Rock likes when I say touching that up on the backside, and I don't blame him. You combine that with some of the standpipe things that we discussed earlier, and things are really going off the rails here. All right. What else is going on? Okay. These next two I like, and I'm not going to lie. Seabox, right? That is one that does not sound like it's just common brewery terminology. And it's just shame on you. Okay. That's the direction I'm taking this. Shame on you. The next two questions are my questions. All right. I want to talk about these. So next question is from Adam from YouTube. Can you make a great beer with extract? I think there is a real I think when I was first getting into the game on the homebrew side, it was common knowledge that if you wanted to be a G, if you wanted to be making really good beer, you needed to make all grain beer, all this stuff. I think that's a huge. I think there's a huge misconception there. I think if you are good at making beer, you can make really good beer with extract. Can you make every beer style with extract? Maybe not. Do you have as much control with extract? Maybe not. But you can make some really, really good beer. I think that there is some overlap because extract is generally the first way that people get into brewing. And then people will say, well, every extract beer I've had, is bad. When in reality, probably what it is it can be sometimes inexperienced people brewing with extract. And so there's some connection there, right? I think in the hands of a brewer that knows what they're doing, if you are using fresh product, fresh extract, not something that's been sitting in a can, since 1982, and Charlie Papazian is drilling holes in a bucket and he's CPAPing it and everything like that. If it's product from back in those days, it's not going to be good. But if you are getting fresh DME, dried malt extract, or LME, liquid malt extract, if you're getting fresh stuff, you can buy from a place that turns over a lot of product. If you're ordering online or at your local homebrew shop, stuff like that. Good fresh ingredients, using appropriate tips and tricks. I always use, whenever I brewed extract, because I did brew extract even when I was brewing all grain heavily, I used RO water when I was doing that, because that wort that you're getting, that malt extract that you're getting, is actually just a dehydrated wort. So it already has its own water profile. So if you have a really aggressive base water that you're using, you could be stacking up too many ions that you don't want to have going on in your water, and you can make things harsh, chalky, different things like that. So I would use RO, but yeah, and then just use good practice. You can make killer beer. If you're using extract, one of the challenges with it might be that, like, you might not be able to make really dry beer with it. Okay, so if extract is typically going to want to finish you out around like 10, 12, and you want to have a really dry beer, consider pulling out 10 to 20% of the total gravity points in there and replacing with dextrose. See what that does for you. You'll get dry, man. If you want that real light, crushable, pale summertime lawnmower beer, pull 10-15% of your DME out and replace it the point value, the sugar value with dextrose, and you can lean those beers out, man, and have a lot of fun with it. It can be a great way of, dude, you know what you're doing. You're brewing all grain. You can rip off an extract beer in no time, man. So it can just be an easy way to pump out some beer. If you got a party coming up and you just want some easy drinking stuff, do it. So yeah, I think all that stuff is great. So yeah, that's my take on extract. The next one is, what are your thoughts on Untapped? I don't know how many of you use Untapped, how you use it, different things like that. I will say that they're probably the least liked application among professional brewers is Untapped, for multiple reasons. I'm not going to act like I love it. I have a little bit more healthy relationship with it than I used to. I remember when I was first getting into the game and you put a new beer up, and the first thing you want to do, man, is you want to see what people are saying about your beer online, right? So anyway, Untapped is a funny thing. It's for those of you that don't know, some people use it as a beer record keeping thing, a beer log. Some people rate beers on it. Some people very seriously rate beers on it. Some people will say they will take your coconut beer and then they will give it a quarter of a star and say, I hate coconut. But the funny thing is how Untapped works is the first 10 people that log a score form the average for the beer, the initial average for the beer. And there's either 4 or 5 stars in that one, or caps, whatever it is. The crazy thing about it is if so, say for argument's sake, I have had somebody say I did a coconut stout the first year we opened Cartridge, and I had somebody say, I hate coconut, quarter of a star. And they were one of the first 10 people that reviewed the beer. So if there are 10 people that are reviewing the beer to form the initial score of that beer, that means I automatically lose 5 points of my potential 50 points from there, right? And the interesting thing is, and it actually tracks, whatever initial rating that beer gets, it tends to set the course for that beer. Okay. So if you have the first 10 people saying it's like a 4.9 beer, it tends to stay pretty high. It'll regress back toward 4, but it tends to stay pretty high. I would say people are relatively influenced by those numbers that they see on Untapped. And that's one of the reasons why it's a source of frustration for a lot of brewers. I don't spend a lot of time looking at it because I don't enjoy it. And also I'm at a little bit healthier space, and I understand what the game is that I'm actually playing. You can have a brewery that has that's a 4.5 star brewery, but they don't make it, right? At the end of the day, great beer doesn't matter. You're running a business, right? So great beer can be part of your business plan, right? But it can't be the business plan. You still got things to get done. Dude, if I'm working at a place that has a 3.5 rating and we're packed, it's full of regulars, and everybody's happy, I don't care what Untapped says. I mean, because we're running a business, right? And we have regulars. They love being there. They love our people. All good stuff, right? But it's a tricky thing, you know. It's a small percentage of beer drinkers. Are a small percentage of beer drinkers. Super majority of beer that's drank is still light lager, right? So yeah, it's a vocal minority. I do think that I do think that it does play a valuable role in the way that for those hardcore dudes that are lining up, those same cats that are lining up at every brewery that has the Hop Boy releases, it's an undercurrent of the market, man. You know, it is marketing. It is a loyalty thing, but I do think it's very much fed a beer collector mentality, which is great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I think what makes things stressful for people on my side of the industry is sometimes people can be too worried about wanting to pop off in that space, right? And ultimately, it's not what pays bills. It's nice and it feels good when you get a beer over 4 on that. You know, like if I think like Motto right now for us is doing pretty well. I think it popped in at over 4, which is good. But me, I make lager. I make a lot of lager, and people don't care. I could sweep World Beer Cup and GABF and lager, and people would still give it a 3.5 in the brew pub. In part because one, people are just saying what they like, and they don't think they're supposed to like something light, right? Different things like that. Lagers are not the most exciting beers. People love to see, like a, bless your heart, there's people out there, whatever. But there was somebody recently that was like, there's ice cream in the can and stuff or whatever, and you have to shake it before you pour it. There's wild stuff. That's not lager. People that stuff gets 5 stars, right? Definitely, because it's exciting, it's interesting, stuff like that. But when your bread and butter is German lager, you can go up and look. I mean, the best lagers that are being made out there, the ones that are winning medals, people don't care about them on Untapped. So I think big picture, it does have value from the standpoint of it can be a barometer for trend, right? Which is valuable. It has people looped in on getting those badges and turning people like into beer tourists, which I think is really beneficial for us. But I think as brewers, we either need to not look at it or just come to a healthier understanding of what that thing really is. So that's my take on Untapped. I just saw somebody say Cartucho. Untapped represents less than 6% of true pressure. Sure. What's my thought on whole kernel past the normal Best By date? If it tastes good, it isn't soft. If it tastes good and it isn't soft, run it. And I would just look for efficiency differences. September and June. That's my thought on that. What's the oldest grain you use if it still passes the dry taste test? Gosh, I don't know. I kind of lean. I kind of lean on I lean on the manufacturer stuff, really. And yeah. That said, though, honestly, like if you're talking about a malt, and it's not stored in a super moist environment, it's still smelling right. It's still the same crispness of a newer version of it, stuff like that. I wouldn't sweat it too much, especially if you're especially on the home side. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you're probably in a pretty decent space for that. What's an untapped option that doesn't cost? Yeah, so untapped like costs something for the brewery to use. I don't know about that. I'm not on the operations side as far as that, but they've got a sweet little deal going. Untapped does. Platinum respect. This is something that I'm coming back to more and more. And he says, breweries are a hospitality business. Agree. Make places that people want to come back to. We're in the business of creating regulars. I think that's it, right? That's the target. And there's other things that flow around that, but I really do think that if you're making beer on the professional side, they say the 80-20 rule: 20% of the people are responsible for 80% of your sales, right? We're about making regulars. I think that's the lens. That's what I'm currently kicking over right now in my head when it comes to stuff like that. Jason Jones just said Cartucho. That is one of my beers. What do you can holler at me. Let me know what you're talking about with Cartucho. Jason Jones putting a barley wine into barrel tomorrow, 5-gallon bourbon barrel. Jason, so here's the deal. Hopefully that barrel is still wet. Hopefully you look in there, it still smells great, and hopefully you see some liquid or at least some relatively wet wood inside there, some wet char. Hopefully it doesn't look like old dry bones in there. But you want to purge it, man. Okay. You want to purge it, and with CO2, I would ISO up or Sani up a little CO2 line. Turn your gas gauge on your regulator down to 5 psi, and then because I actually just sanitize that CO2 line because you're going to put it into the bottom of the barrel, and then I would cover the bung of the barrel with aluminum foil so nothing's falling in, and it might even help hold the hose in a little bit. You won't have to do it for long, but give it 5 minutes. Nice slow purge fill from the bottom. And then you're going to want to get, and something that I would do is I would transfer that beer into the barrel, and sometimes I would rig it up to where I would have the CO2 continuing to blow in there at the same time. I really want to decrease oxygen with these things. And I think with the 5-gallon barrel, I think you're probably going to want to start tasting that beer after about a month. So you might want to explore the option of a Vinny nail. And so you're going to want to Google Vinny nail Russian River, and they will give you the specs on the stainless steel nail that you will want and the size drill bit that you will want. Get your barrel full as you can to the top. Okay. If you can get one of the nylon bungs that can actually have a little pressure relief on it, you probably want one of those just in case. But you'll probably want your beer room temp. If you're putting it in cold, that beer is going to expand and then spill out all over the place. Just a few things, but purge that barrel out really well. Get your beer in there, soft bung it up, and then at 4 weeks, tap a little hole into the head of the barrel, so the round face, and then have your sanitized stainless steel nail. You drill in, work the drill around a little bit, and then take that out. It's going to start shooting out beer. Get your glass under it, grab your sanitized nail, stuff it back in there, tap it in, not all the way flush, because then you'll be able to pull and sample again. I would do that in the bottom third of the barrel. Now, I will say this. It might represent a little bit stronger spirit character than is truly indicative of the entire vessel. At least I know that's the case with a larger 53-gallon barrel. Sometimes when you pull your sample right off the edge of the wood, you can be pulling an area that's potentially a little bit more spirit rich. But I think with a small barrel like that, you're probably going to be fine. But you're probably going to want to start tasting at week 4 and maybe 5, 6, and everywhere after that. You can get extraction out of those small barrels really, really quick. I was only able to keep my beers in a 15-gallon barrel for about 9 weeks before I had to pull them out. Okay. So it's one of the cool things about working with a smaller barrel. You can pull character out quicker just because of the surface area game. But yeah, think about it like that. And then when you're packaging, when you're getting into a bottling bucket, into a keg, purge, the whole thing. There's some cool rigs out there for some at-home bulldog style transfer devices. So Google that too. Homebrew bulldog barrel transfer, things like that. Some super good stuff. Good luck with it, man, and let me know how it goes, because playing with those little barrels is a lot of fun. Okay. Nathaniel Anderson, I won 3rd place in a homebrew competition. If you win 3rd place, would you try to improve that beer and re-enter it, or would you just try to improve your overall process and win with a different beer? Probably what I would do is if I medal with a beer, it's a win. It doesn't matter whether it's 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. Obviously, 1st is sweet. That's cool. But I like to think about it as being in the range, right? Competition is an interesting thing. When you're sitting at a judging table, if you happen to get the most talkative, boldest judge liking your beer, you got a good shot, man. They can kind of bully on the table a little bit. And I'm not necessarily saying that in a negative way, but, some people are a little bit more dominant than others. So if you get somebody championing your beer really hard, um, my guess is if you won third place with the beer, it could have, if it's rejudged again, it very easily could have taken first or second. Okay. I view winning a medal as just winning a medal, right? So I would kind of look at it like that. If you're tasting it and you're looking at judge feedback and they're thinking what you're thinking as a way to improve it, go for it. Go for it. But yeah, I really think that comes down to what your personal goals are, right? I think in general, what you're doing every single time you're brewing and when you're not brewing and just thinking about brewing, you're thinking about ways of tightening up and improving process. So improving process is every day regardless, is every brew day regardless, right? Um, but yeah, I mean that would be my approach with it. I would feel good about a beer if it's winning a medal, especially if you come back and you run it back with that beer and it wins again. I just had some beers win for the second time, which is cool. So that's always a good feeling. It lets you know that maybe it's not fluky. Sometimes there's that little ugly voice in the back of your head that's like, it was fluky. You're a joke. Your mom was right about you. No, it's not true. My mom loves me. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's how I'd run it, dude. Congratulations. That's exciting. I still remember I think I took third place for a sweet stout at the Siciliano's homebrew competition in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Shout out to Steve and Barb Siciliano, who I think just rode off into the sunset for retirement. Steve was a great man, is a great man, and really went out of his way for me. I remember he used to tease me. They expanded when I was in the throes of my homebrew days, and they expanded their shop and they put a hole in the wall to attach the two sides. And he said they were going to put a sign up above it that was going to call it the Mills wing of of the homebrew shop because I spent so much time and money there. But anyways, yeah. Mark Serenana. How often do you repitch yeast like juice, and how have you found it changes over time? What I'm finding right now when I use juice is I'm doing more and more late cryo stuff in the whirlpool, and I'm getting greener and greener work going to my kettle. Um, and I'm saying green, not vegetal. It's green as in all of the hop oils and everything like that. It's not a big vegetal thing that I'm getting. There's a difference because with those cryo hops, there's less vegetal, more oil. And I do feel like I'm having a harder time with the large volume of hopping that I'm doing in the whirlpool, getting clean repitches off that. But I can definitely repitch it 3 times and feel pretty good about it. As far as harvest goes, the lager strain that I use from Imperial, I'm getting to the point to where we'll usually turn between 8 and 10 30 barrel batches with a pitch. So yeah. Let me pop right back here. Oh yeah, man. Sweet. Annie Crooners. Hey, we got 20 people in the chat. That's awesome, you guys. 22. I appreciate it. I think this is one of the bigger live ones. One of the bigger live ones I've had. That's fun. Annie Crooners. Hi, Adam. How are you calculating your ABV when adding fruit to a beer? I'm finding conflicting answers online. Thanks. So here's the tricky thing. I use fruit. I use fruit puree. It's not like you're just dumping sugar into your fermenter when you ferment that out, because it's also in a liquid and it's also being diluted and it's a small volume. I would recommend that you Google the phrase DIY ABV calculator for fruit additions. When I did that, I was able to find a spreadsheet that will help you plug in all the different variables. Oftentimes, with dilution and everything like that, you're not adding as much as you think you are. Please keep in mind, this is if you are actually fermenting your fruit out, which I would recommend you do, just from a safety standpoint. Non-fermented fruit beers can be really tasty, and there's ways that you can do that by knocking out the yeast and whatnot. But not everybody's doing that. Not everybody has a centrifuge. Not everybody is filtering. Not everybody's sorbating and things like that. So that's what I would check out with it. Google that, check it out, see if that gets you in the right, going in the right direction, because it is not just like going in and saying, oh, I'm just adding 2 pounds, a pound of sugar to this batch. It's not an exact thing. Yeah, man. 2023 Homebrewers edition, Homebrewers competition just got announced. They used to give me butterflies, man. I used to that was always the big dream. I think as well as I did in that was I think I took second, or no, I placed. I medaled in the first round. No, maybe I medaled in the second round too. Maybe I medaled in the second round, and that was for a coconut beer. That was for a coconut sweet stout. I'm gonna knock this beer out real quick. I'm gonna grab another one, maybe quick bathroom break, and then I'll be back in a second. Maybe you do the same. And we are back. I like when September and June I feel like he's just lying in wait for anything, and it actually had me second guessing myself, like, because I don't want to reference everything. Like, you try to be somewhat serious when you talk about covering the bunghole and different things like that, but I like September and June's dedication to pointing out every time I use a legitimate brewing term that sounds, potentially a little naughty. All right, what else? Yeah, Platinum Respect is asking about, like, just being really into it, like, is it all you think about? Have you had that happen? Yeah, man, and I'm one of those people that I I hyper focus on one thing all the time. Beginning of the year, it was learning how to use Instagram and how to do YouTube. And so that's what's got me here. Years ago, it was learning to make beer. There's been some cooking stuff in there as well. Um, and yeah, I'm generally all or nothing in one direction with the topic. And yeah, so yeah, man, I know what that's like. It's just one of those things where it just kind of takes over. Um, it doesn't happen to me as much anymore, but but yeah, it's something I'm still plenty excited about. So yeah, exactly. Passionate is the right word. Um, all right, next question. We only have a couple more. So if there's anything that you want to throw in the chat, we are getting close to 2 hours anyhow, but I'll try to keep it rolling as much as we've got here. And like I said, I'll jump back to the chat after I get through these next couple. I'll get through these next couple. I'll say the winners for the awesome brew log, and we'll go from there. Is there a good way for homebrewers to sterilize their equipment if I want to use lacto or Brett? I am not able to have separate equipment for this. It depends on what equipment you're talking about, because you can potentially have separate equipment if we're thinking about the same things. If your obviously kettle is not an issue. If you have a solid surface fermenter, if you're using a glass carboy, if you are fermenting in stainless, you can ferment wild things in those vessels. You need to be on point though. Okay. I would say that if you are, but notice I'm only talking about hard surface vessels. I'm not talking about plastic. Plastic is far too porous and it'll hide those boys in there and you won't be able to get it clean. Okay, that's just me. And I'm also not crazy about the oxygen ingress with plastic. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if you're talking about stuff like that, you can probably get by with really good cleaning and sanitizing processes. If you're talking about fermenting something in stainless, you're going to want to have softs specifically for that, though. Okay, so if you have stainless and you have some tri-clamp things, and there's the rubber gasket that goes between, think about having one color gasket for wild beers and another color for your clean beers, and you would want anything that's soft. So you would want to have if you have a butterfly valve, you want a butterfly valve that would be for that stuff only. Think about it like that. If you're talking buckets for fermentation, then yeah, maybe you do have room in the budget for another fermentation bucket. That would be a good way to go. Again, with fermenting in buckets, I would caution you to look at long-term storage and potentially oxygen ingress, just as something to think about. If we're talking about transfer equipment is something that you would probably want to have a second set for. And again, if it's tubing, racking canes, you can have stainless steel racking canes. I had a stainless steel racking cane. They have like the auto siphon, or at least they used to. So like some plastic stuff. I wouldn't feel comfortable using the same auto siphon on something, though. But between wild ferment, a wild type yeast and your standard stuff, I wouldn't like to do that. Obviously, you can boil smalls, stuff like that. Listen, I mean, this stuff isn't mutant. It dies in the face of heat and stuff like that. Pasteurization works. So if you do have metal parts, soft parts, you can pasteurize those in water at a certain temperature for X amount of time. Look it up on a chart. Um, Stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you can create a situation where you can raise the temperature on something, yeah, but you wouldn't want to be doing that with glass. You wouldn't want to be doing that. Yeah, I mean, you could be with stainless, but you would just be better off swapping out your softs, man. That's my thought. That's my thought. Um, so hopefully I got that. I got that question. I got that question right for you. Um, I'll jump over to this one. Robert Brown, you're awesome. No, Robert Brown, you're awesome. Um, September and June, how do you feel when you're sitting at the GABF Awards? It depends. It depends who I'm sitting next to. Um, I have some friends that like to kind of get over like their own personal stress at the moment by being physically affectionate with me. It's not that I don't enjoy it, but it's kind of a time and place thing. But Yeah, I mean, sitting there and waiting for those beers. I am not participating in World Beer Cup. I don't believe I will be participating in World Beer Cup. That's what I should say. But I mean, it's nerve wracking, man. I mean, you're in an auditorium with a whole bunch of people that I mean, it's a dream to win one of those medals. And if you're a brewer that it's not a dream to win one of those medals, dude, good for you. Good for you. And I mean, I think I do way better with it than I used to. Um, but it's a dream to walk across that stage, man. You know, it can still be a dream and not be something that destroys you. It's a downer. It's a downer when you don't win, and I certainly have more experience not winning in those competitions that I do winning in those competitions. But I don't know. I think if I do keep entering those comps, um, it's gonna be a cool thing to check off the list. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I'm still gonna be the same dude. But that's that attaboy, that pat on the back, probably doesn't hurt. But yeah, so that's kind of my take on that. Mm. Real quick on this one. Um, Robert Brown just about to knock out this double decocted dark Czech pills. I am tired, but it's worth it. Hell yeah, man! Good for you. That's awesome. What are you fermenting it with? Let me know. 3470, the Augustiner strain. What do you got going on? Platinum respect. Let me hit this question up quick. Any chance you saw my question on pretzel flavor in beer? I think I asked it on YouTube. Yeah, man. Honestly, what my thought would be is on that, people go a lot of different directions. Sometimes people say they're making apple pie beer, so there's whole apple pies going into the mash, it's going into the kettle, all that stuff. To be honest, what I would do just off the top of my head, if you want to throw pretzels in your mash, you can do it. I would suggest, though, if you're going to do that, please get unsalted. Right there, I think you probably want to be able to control the amount of both chloride and sodium going into your beer, because you will hit a point with sodium where you won't like what's going on with it. But so if you want to do pretzels in there, in the mash, I would go unsalted. But then also think about the capacity of your malt. All right. So think about what that pretzel character is really like. Um, and of course it's salty, but it's this really distinct toasty, not quite roasty, bready. It's interesting because it's like there's some darker bread notes, but then there's almost like cracker notes, right? So start trying to stack up some malt like that without going crazy. Looking at things like maybe some more character malt forward stuff. Maybe this would be a good time to blend up some things that we consider to be base malts, whether that be like a Pils, Vienna, Munich type thing. Um, Play around with some ratios of that if you want to, depending on where you want to go color wise. Obviously, you can do a little color adjustment with maybe some dehusked roasted malt. And then honestly, I mean, we're already talking about putting pretzels in your beer. But if I was doing it, what I would do is I would try to generate as much similar flavor with malt, and then I would find a quality TTB approved extract to accent with. But yeah, but that's just your boy here. That's what I would do. But yeah. Um, Great video. Couple of questions. Oh, this is in relationship to I did a video on, we just released a beer called Motto. If you are local, there is still some bottles available. They look awesome. The beer's tasty. It was the beer that we barrel aged for 9 weeks in those Garrison Brother 15-gallon bourbon barrels. It's a fun beer. Check it out if you can. It's pretty booze forward. The coconut's really nice and rich. It's real coconut, so it has like that full, soft, quite frankly, like coconut fatty richness to it, because we used 11 pounds per barrel, and it's good, man. It's Motto, second to none. And check out either my Instagram or the Cartridge Facebook, and you'll see some pictures of that. And I did I did a video. That's so this whole thing is kind of about it in some way, right? By the way, I make YouTube videos. I have a full YouTube video on us making that, and that was one I was pretty proud of. I shot everything myself and edited it all myself, and that was one of the first ones I did once I've been doing some more editing, so I knew how I wanted to shoot it. But anyways, you don't care about that. You want some answers about this. So this is talking about bottling this coconut version of Motto that we did. Since you aren't bottle conditioning these, have you noticed any DO issues post packaging, especially with the Blickman beer gun? Dude, no. I have put beer into a bottle with a Blickman beer gun, and it has held up very, very well. I've had 8-year-old beers. They were strong beers, but I've had 8-year-old beers that I made at home, and I was relentless about sanitation and purging, and I kept the beers consistently at cellar temperature. The beers were past their prime. I had a dark strong that I shared with somebody, and maybe it got to maybe even 10 years or 8 years. But anyways, probably the last bottle was like 8 years when I shared it. It was an 8-year-old bottle. The bitterness had fallen out, and it was round and a little bit sherry-like, because there is going to be some oxidation and stuff like that. But I mean, hell, it was still it was a little bit wine-like almost. But because you do build up some of those dark raisin flavors, and different things like that. As those, what's actually happening is my understanding, some of those higher alcohols are actually being esterified, and so actually put into a little different sensory direction. And but yeah, I have no issues with saying that something will be stable packaging with a beer gun. I've been using that for, goodness, 15, 17 years, something like that by now. So that wouldn't be a concern for me. Secondly, how was the liquid coconut to use? It was the Cholaka pasteurized, basically coconut smoothie that they sell. I had a hard time getting it out of solution. I didn't have the exact ideal tank sizes to be working with. And anyways, if I had to do it all over again, I would do it a little bit differently. But it is hard to get out a solution a little bit, at least with the time that I had and what I ended up having to do with it. But I love the product, and you can get it to drop. I do think there is a little bit of coconut in those. There might be a little bit of coconut haze in those bottled beers, but it's delicious. And just get it and drink it. If you're local, grab that thing and drink it. They're nice. They're nice. Um, I know that it had to be added warm for maximum. I added that 55, that coconut. And did you taste it until it seemed like enough? I just I was blowing it off the bottom of the tank, trying and hoping to get it clear. And yeah, that's how that went. Also off topic, that looks like an American canning AT1 canning machine in the background. It is. I like it a lot, man. It's perfect for us. We do very limited distro with it, and it's primarily keeping cans up in house for to go. If you have your own small place and you want think about it as a high quality growler, right? Somebody walks out of your place with a 4-pack or a 6-pack. It's like a to go sampler, right? That's your missionary beer that you're sending out there that you want to bring other people in. I would rather have people taking that beer out in those cans than in a growler, because it's going to hold up better. And the other thing is that single head filler. We do like 5-6 cans a minute, so it's not blazing fast, but it's better than some 4 or 5 head fillers that I have that just float with a cap with a lid on it, and they're just waiting to be seamed. Dude, that AT1, man, it's filled, it moves, it's sealed in under a second. It's awesome. It pumps me up. I think for I haven't run DO numbers on it, but I know that darn thing sealed a heck of a lot faster than some other ones I've done. I'm just catching up on the chat here a little bit, you guys. Look at you guys talking in the chat. I like this. I like this. This makes me happy. What is the absorption rate on dry hop pretzels? That is a very good question. So I think that's the old dry pretzel. I mean, there's been some things that we've kicked around doing. Me and my boy Bill Gerds back in the day when we used to work for the Coney Mogul. We used to work at a place that made here you go, Rock. That made Coney hot dogs, and so we would always say that at some point we're gonna do a Coney beer, and we're gonna dry dog it. We're gonna dry hop it with hot dogs. But I mean, the possibilities are endless. You can dry dog it, you can dry nut it. There's a wide range of things. But I will say this. So I have 3 winners of our brew log. Dry dog. It's just as heinous as it sounds. That I mean, I would assume. I've yet to dry dog a beer, but I mean, this channel's about growth. You know what I mean? And you never know. So I have 3 winners of our brew log giveaway from Food Engineer. I'm so terrible with remembering things. So I do think it's Food Engineer. Yeah, from Food Engineer. So and those 3 people are and really what I did was I took one from Discord, and then obviously all the questions that I pick I like that I talk about here. So I just went a little random with it. And so our Discord question, our Discord user that is going to be getting one is Backyard Brews and Barbecue. So a round of applause there. And then next from YouTube is Annie Crooners. Annie, what's good? And then our third winner from YouTube is Biker Metalhead. So please check this out. These are available on YouTube. These are available on Amazon. And what I'll do is I'll put up a link. I'll try to do a post on YouTube mentioning it, linking out to that. What we should do is send me. Not all of you guys are Instagram people. Annie, Biker Metalhead, are you guys on Instagram? Here's the deal. I'm going to put this email address in. This is my email address for the channel. 513, baby. At all right. So AdamMills513 at gmail.com. That any like if you have a question, you guys can reach me at that. But if you are Backyard, Annie, or Biker Metalhead, send me shoot me an email. And so I have your email, and then we'll hook it up with the food engineer. This is a ton of fun, you guys. I just got demonetized. I hope not. But yeah. Yeah, once again, I just have a blast with this, and it's so cool. It's so cool to see people in the chat talking and talking beer and talking crap and everything like that. We're gonna have some fun stuff coming up, man. End of 2022 into 23, we're doing some fun stuff in the brewery. Stay tuned on that. We're going to be doing some big stouts, some adjunct stouts, and some different things, man. So, yeah, stick with it. We have a lot of cool things coming up. It's going to be interesting to see where the whole thing takes us. So, listen, we're getting into the season. It's Thanksgiving coming up. It's Christmas coming up. Enjoy your people. It's getting cool out there. So. Make some darker beer, some stronger beer. Spend some time with your people, all right? Once again, I appreciate you guys so much. I hope you have a great month. Hit me up with questions. Keep questions coming when I post these things either on Instagram or the announcements on Facebook, because it definitely makes my job easier. So anyhow, I'm gonna get out of here. Have a good night, everybody.